Mike Freeman is the president of the other organization, the 1963 organization. He was elected last year, and he's been with the Scholarship Foundation for some time now. But keep in mind, it's a totally separate board, and it is a charity, not-for-profit. And Sue here, there's Sue. She is the equivalent of, think of her as a program manager inside. She is what we call a product lead for scholarship. So just as Jan has Barb, so Michael has Sue.
And Bill, you're still in my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank Jan for putting this together today, because this is the first time I've seen an event of this nature put together, and thank Bill for supporting it and doing all those type things. When Jan called off the lower chapter, it made my heart flutter, because that was my last operational assignment, along with Command Sergeant Major Height. So when he talked about the fun run and the gulch and all those type things, I wanted to send out a big hoo on that. Because that gulch run, it's an incline. I don't know if y'all still do that or not. Do you still do that? Yes, cool. Yeah, it's a kind of a gut check after you go out and do the airfield and come back up through the gulch. It's about strong 5 miles. But Bill's already introduced Sue, who is the subject matter expert at headquarters on this. And I've sent out an email traffic to everyone. It's about a month ago, inviting you to this event and also inviting you to the board meeting, because I think it's important for you to participate, and it's important for you to have the opportunity to have a voice at the table. Did you, in fact, receive the email traffic? Any of it? So don't everybody say yes at the same time, but, but you did not receive it? Okay, so Sue just will take note, and then we'll validate the email addresses that you have here that you gave Jan, and we'll continue to see there. Okay, I see Joe had already went to the agenda slide. As you can see on the agenda slide, what I want to do today is share with you some information about the foundation, the health of the foundation, the different categories that has already been addressed, and also the scholarships that have been awarded, and the different types of scholarships, with the key being right here, the perpetual and annual scholarships, because that's important for you, and that's where you make your money. Also, there's important timelines, scholarship timelines that you have to address, and also a scholarship link and contact information. Okay. The next slide is, you've already heard that the Scholarship Foundation was created in 1963, December the 3rd to be exact. So we've been existing for 53 years. Over those 53 years, a lot of ground has been covered, but it is voluntary. So as Bill said, everybody on the board, you spend your own time, own money to support this, but it's an important venture to support, and it's important to take care of the soldiers and give back to the soldiers. Being a 501(c), the bottom line on that is that every donation right here, let me go back, every donation, every penny from the donations we receive goes to recipients of the scholarship. The National Association picks up all the expenses associated with running the scholarship board and those type things. So you can rest assured that when you, in fact, make a donation, or someone makes a donation, corporations, individuals, doesn't make any difference, all that money goes back to a soldier and benefits a soldier. Okay, in terms of input, and you probably see this if you get the magazine, you probably see it in applications reviewed. You probably didn't see that number, that fact there, that we reviewed 546 scholarships. That means that in the July time frame, when the people come to the National Guard headquarters, we normally have meetings at the National Guard headquarters, and you can participate in that event if you so desire. We reviewed 564 files. Of those 564 files, 282 people were selected. And you can see the amount of money that was contributed to sponsoring those scholarships. And that's roughly, it shows there a 50% selection rate, but it's actually about a 61% selection rate. And the boards are run just as most promotion boards are run in the Army. You review the files. Now what the headquarters does, they sanitize the files. In terms of sanitize the file, they take the name off, the parents' names off, so there's a pretty fair evaluation. It is not pretty fair, it is a fair evaluation of the files for the people that are competing for the scholarships. Once we go through the files and the files are voted in from 1 to 6, just like on the promotion board. Once that file is voted, then the people are placed on an a merit list in terms of selection. And you can see the breakout here where everyone is touched. So it's not like it's just all for officers or all for enlisted or any particular demographic. Here you can see that the chapters, and that's been discussed already, broken down in those 4 categories: the super chapters and the master chapters. And the key point, the key takeaway on here, that everyone has the opportunity to receive funds. It's not if you put the work in terms of filling out the paperwork, submitting a request, you have a good opportunity to receive the funds and receive scholarships. And the bottom line, keep in mind right here, even the small chapters can get up to $5,000. And then the 1 January, there was a change in terms of the grants being made. If you have any questions at any time, either I will field the question or Sue or Bill will be able to field the questions.
Why the difference from 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 based on your chapter size?
Okay, the question was, why is there a difference? It got changed a few years ago. Some of our super chapters, and it makes sense, the larger chapters have a larger kitty, and we wanted to make sure we had the funds sustainable for the smaller chapter. For example, if you got a chapter with $150,000 in the bank, why are they asking for $5,000 to match on a scholarship? The difference to them is incremental. The difference to a chapter with 50 members is gigantic. They may have $3,000 in the bank. When they request $5,000, that's twice their total assets. And it benefits essentially, think about this, if they actually came up with a full $5,000 as a small scholarship, that would be matched with $5,000. That would give them 10 $1,000 scholarships, or potentially 5 $2,000 scholarships. So the bang for the buck and the diminishing returns, you kind of get punished for being bigger, badder, and having more money. So the good news is you got more money. The bad news is you don't get free money as much as you did. But the small guys, we're trying to encourage the small guys to make sure they take care of it. And as Mike just mentioned there, the little guys, little guys, in the bottom end of the Quad A chapter, you got to come up with $500. We'll match you with $500. That's one $1,000 scholarship. Anybody can come up with $500, guys. So
is there do you have like based on those chapter sizes?
Based on those chapter sizes, do you have a recommendation for what, going back to Jan's slide about the color coding and the 10+ scholarships, I mean, we give away fewer scholarships, but they're healthy. They're $3,000 scholarships. So do you have a recommendation for us for, as a master or a super chapter or whatever level we're at, what we should be giving away? I mean, is there a standardization program here, or it's just come on a chapter by chapter basis?
yeah, there really is no standardization. The argument has been on the board for my 20 years. Do we want to give out more scholarships and benefit more kids, or do we want to give bigger scholarships with higher impacts? Our biggest scholarship is Joseph Cribbins and his wife Helen Cribbins, and that's $13,000. But on the other hand, there's been an argument on another faction of the board goes, hey, $1,000, $1,500 for books, and you're going to Troy State, that makes a pretty good impact. Not everybody's going to Harvard and whatever the high dollar colleges are. So basically the board has looked to reward as many families as possible to make this as meaningful as possible. But your local chapter, you guys are supposed to be most in touch with your members. If you're up in the Northeast where every state college is $50,000 a year, you might, like my chapter, we give $2,000 scholarships, generally speaking, because it's got to be more meaningful, because these colleges are, even the state colleges, are ridiculous. But if you're in an area where $1,000, $1,500 and your judgment makes an impact, take care of more soldiers. I mean, it's pretty good advertising if you're taking care of 20 members, families versus 10.
So maybe that 10 plus.
So maybe in the rating of the chapters, 10 is almost impossible for some of the smaller chapters. So maybe that needs to be weighted by chapter size. There should be a band.
I'd encourage Jan to look at maybe dollar amount by band size. and so they can be properly weighted, because, you can't compete with Mid-Atlantic and, Tennessee Valley that's giving out $30,000, $40,000 worth of scholarships a year.
Just to put it in perspective, when we looked at the weightings for chapter of the year and so forth like that, when it came to scholarships and that, we basically was a pass-fail type thing. So even though I may have certain colors and coatings in my piece, it is just for me to get a feel. But I understand what they're saying. You can give 110 or 1010s, you're going to get a bigger number, but it doesn't affect how we're looking at the health of the chapter. So, but we will look it up. But it is a good point to bring up. So, thanks.
And when this goes out to the voters on the awards board, we caution them that the top chapter award is not a quantitative process where you're literally going to total up a score. We don't need you for that. I mean, I can get Excel to do that and give you a total score. They have to get a feel for the chapter. And like Jan said earlier, we see a chapter that suddenly has 75 members giving out 30 orders St. Michael bronze. That's not necessarily a good thing. That might be a caution light. Something's going on here. Where's the standard there if they're giving out 30 orders St. Michael's, and the year before they gave out 3? They only got 75 members. What the hell did they give to every single person? So there's aspects of that too, that bigger is not necessarily better.
We were sitting here listening to the conversation, and there's a lot more interest now of people taking technical rather than junior college pursuits. Do we have a line on how you might support people going for a recognized technical?
Well, that's really a question for the board, for the scholarship board, in terms of policies. But any accredited program right now is eligible for anything. But they talked about that several years ago.
Yeah. One other point to address your question. The bottom line is all about soldiers. It's about taking care of soldiers, helping as many soldiers, and reaching out as many soldiers as possible. There's been many discussions on whether or not we should increase, and the board is still under that, discussing whether we should increase the amount of scholarship or should we touch more soldiers. Because when I was wearing the uniform, the big question people would ask is, what's in it for me? What's the benefit? And how do I receive a benefit from at that time it was the dues. You paid dues and it came out your check and all those type things. But it's important to reach as many soldiers as possible, I think. That's the main objective.
I'll just follow up your question by letting you know that at our chapter, in order for us to write a check, for the scholarship matching, we have to have a meeting to determine how much we're gonna provide. And it was a really good 30 to 45-minute discussion about the number of scholarships and the amount that we wanted to request. And it was changed. It changed from years prior based on the changing membership and the members of the board, so to speak, at our local chapter. So it was a really good discussion. We thought it out and made our decision. I assume that's what everybody else does.
Well, there's a dependency on tribal knowledge, right? So you lose some of that tribal knowledge.
Well, there is to an extent, but on the other hand, you don't want to get fixated on just because this is what we did 5 years ago. Again, you guys are the local representatives. As Jan mentioned in the earlier slides, let's face it, 17,000 people do not stop by Monroe, Connecticut to visit Quality National Headquarters. You guys are it. So you're supposed to be in touch with what the needs are inside your community, and that's the best judge for us to do. You don't have to do what you did last year.
Are we out on the, there's some websites that rate the nonprofits. Is that something that you've considered or requesting, if not demanding, of the scholarship recipients, that they rate us on bestnonprofits.org or whatever?
Yeah, the one that it's slipping my mind right now that is most highly regarded, you actually have to have revenue of $1 million a year and up. We've come in the last 5 years very close. We've had like 975 one year. We had like 925 one year. But you have to get to the $1 million level to get on, it's not Blackbaud. Navigator, Charity Navigator. And Tom Conitzer went down and visited with the Soft Warrior Foundation with Howard Yellen, our immediate past Quality president, and got schooled on, money knows money and how you get $500,000 donations and things like that. But there are lesser known sites that will certainly rate you kind of like a restaurant type thing. I'm sure it's in Mike's slides. I can't recall, but keep in mind, 100 cents on the dollar of every donation goes directly to a scholarship or going out to a scholarship. It's either in principal or out. And how is that possible? Who's paying for the $30,000 a year in audit fees? Who's paying for all the investment fees on a $6.5 million portfolio? Quad A has. Quad A voted many, many years ago, a separate organization, a membership organization. Last year, Quad A spent $121,000 making sure that everything was supported inside Michael's organization, so that every dollar you guys raise, every dollar you donate, goes 100 cents on the dollar. And I'm not aware of any other charity that can say that 100 cents on the dollar raised goes directly to that cause, either in principle to your scholarship, or the XYZ chapter, or out the door if it's a $1,000 scholarship or whatever it is, in and out as an annual. So that's how all that happens. All the overhead's picked up by Quad A.
The Mid-Atlantic chapter actually donates to the scholarship fund 3 different ways, and I'm trying to get clarification on what gets matched. One, we have an industry partner that always sends money to a specific scholarship. The second one is when we're doing fundraisers, we got 3 different fundraisers a year. When we do a fundraiser, a lot of people want that tax break, so I just send it directly to national. And the third one is our chapter writes a check, with the some excess funds that we vote that we go ahead and send to you. So the matching, which does it cover?
It doesn't matter. The color to us of money is all green. So if you send in $20,000 at your level, at the highest level, you're going to get matched for $3,000 at the super chapter level. It doesn't matter if 5 came from this fundraiser and 10 from that and 2 from industry or whatever they came through. At your level per year, you're going to get $3,000. If you were a 50-member chapter, you would get up to $5,000. Up to $5,000. We're not going to just give you $5,000. You have to raise the $5,000 to get it matched by $5,000. You give us 1. We'll match it with 1. In your case, you guys got $1 bazillion. Sadly, you only get matched with 3. So that's, but that's the penalty for being a big guy and making a lot of money.
It's not as resilient. We want to make sure we get the maximum match.
Yeah, you do. And you get the maximum every year. But it was cut back a couple, 3 years ago from 5 to 3 at the super chapter level. That is an interesting point, though, and I don't want to get too far down into the weeds, guys. But you got to be careful as far as IRS requirements go on fundraisers, all right? If, for example, you have a dinner and it's $100 a plate and you're sort of marketing this thing as a scholarship fundraiser and you're paying the hotel $60 per plate, that donor has received a $60 benefit. The only thing they get to write off is the $40 above the cost of that $100 check. And the IRS goes high side if you guys are giving them a $100 check for a meal because you're going to say, what, you paid nothing for the meal? That person didn't eat it? They received a tangible benefit for X. So that's why we at the national office have to take everything in. There is only one organization, Scholarship Foundation. You don't have 72 scholarship foundations. There is one scholarship foundation. In order for them to get that IRS letter from me that I sign saying congratulations, you can go ahead and give this to your accountant because you gave X to the Scholarship Foundation, it has to come from the national organization. Otherwise, they'll get caught at some point.
Bill, to follow up on that point, Washington Potomac chapter, we run a black tie affair in October, November each year that raises maybe $25,000, $30,000. And we solicit support from industry for that event, and as bronze, gold, silver, whatever the case may be, and they make a contribution. But the contribution is made not to the Washington Potomac chapter, a check written directly to the Scholarship Foundation, so that their contribution is totally tax deductible. Then what we do is raise money through the sale of tables and other kinds of contributions where the expenses to cover the event are paid for, and we usually make money on that as well. So there is a workaround from an industry standpoint, because you can get some industry support easier if they know that their contribution is going to be made directly to the Scholarship Foundation. The key is the check has got to be made out to Quad A Scholarship Foundation Incorporated, okay?
Yeah, there are different EIN numbers, and if they put the Quad A EIN number on their tax form, it'll get bounced back by the IRS.
My question is, if they write the check directly to you, let's say I raised $10,000, and they write that check directly to the foundation, and then I want to do $10,000 in scholarships. If I put up $10,000, you're going to match my $10,000.
No, you're going to match
Well, I'm just, okay, all right, I'll use legitimate numbers. Let's say I raise to $5,000 and I push it to your organization. And then I raise another $5,000 for my scholarships, and I put up $5,000 scholarships, and then you give me back the money that I've raised, basically in a match at $5,000.
No, it goes at, our match goes directly into your scholarships. For example, yeah, it goes into your scholarship. So you gave us 5, instantaneously you've got 10. So in the May time frame, you're going to get a letter from us saying, you gave out X scholarships last year, what do you want to do this year? If you have a permanently endowed scholarship, we'll say, hey, your scholarship kicked off so much in interest last year. Actually, there's a different thing called a spend rate, which is going to make your brain bleed. But anyway, we'll tell you, your scholarship assets kicked off so much. You gave us $3,000, we are going to match it with $3,000. But that's, now how do you want to distribute that? You have to instruct us, literally, the written letter of instruction, because the accountants at the end of the year go back over every written instruction.
So I don't have to raise another $3,000. That's already gone. If I raise $5,000 based on my size, and I have my contributors, donors, write the checks directly to you, they get the tax deduction. That $5,000 sits in an account, and then when I say, okay, I want to put up $5,000 of scholarships or $10,000 of scholarships, I'm going to get what I put up plus y'all's match. Okay, that works.
It's automatic, because when we get into the June time frame, we've got to lock everything down because we have to know exactly how many scholarships are out there, because we meet in like the 3rd weekend in July, either online or in person, and we have to establish the order of merit list that Michael referred to, and the top point score getting file gets the biggest scholarship, whatever it is, 13,500, and it walks itself down, 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 and each scholarship has a constellation of potential files. For example, if it was the aerosol chapter and it got down to the aerosol chapter, only those file numbers that are associated with the aerosol chapter are eligible for that scholarship. So it's in descending dollar order from the highest point scoring kid that's got like a 4.7 average, 800 SATs and all that stuff, on down to, well, I'd never get to somebody like me, but I would never gotten any of these scholarships. But that's the point. And you don't have to do a thing, because we track from January 1 on. So when we're in the June time frame, we'll have already come back to you and said, hey, you sent us $4,000, you've got $8,000. What do you want to do with it? And you're going to say, no, you got to make a choice. Am I going to do 4 2,000s? Am I going to do 8 1,000s? The minimum scholarship, though, is 1,000. You can't go below that. You can do 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, but the minimum is 1,000.
Bill, talk to what happens if there's not enough applicants within that chapter.
Yeah, okay. Here's a specific, sorry, Mike.
Go right
I
ahead.
can call out the Connecticut chapter because I'm a member of the Connecticut chapter, and I can't remember how many years ago we blew it. But we raised a bunch of money, and I can't remember if it was 4,000 or 8,000. We had a pretty good deal. And it turns out not a single kid from our chapter applied that year. So we wasted either 4 1,000s or I can't remember if it was 8 that year. And from that point on, our chapter got serious about it. And we beat the bushes and made sure it would have been automatic. If we had 4 kids, absolutely. Yeah, we'll hold it over the following year. But there are options in there. If you guys don't put anybody up, we ain't matching it. Okay? We're not stupid. So, you don't get the money for nothing. The point is to... Correct. So, and by the way, if you only had 2 kids, they benefit from the scholarship. The next 2, if it's option 1 or option 2, are going to go out to the next person in order of merit. So, literally, if you have 4 scholarships and you have 4 kids, they're all going to get scholarships unless they get picked up by a higher amount. We're not going to penalize them because you're in the X chapter and you only have a $1,000 scholarship and that kid's got 800 SATs and 4.7 average. He might get the $13,000 scholarship. Guess what? He got sucked out of your population because he's already up at the very, very top of the OML.
In that case, though, in that case, if somebody picks up, if in that case, if somebody, if I have 4 people, one of mine gets sucked up into the other one, I put up 4 scholarships, I have 3, I have a remaining one, I can choose to take that remaining scholarship, and anybody in Quad A, it could trickle down to them.
The option is, if you take money and one of your kids benefited to, here's the logic, much higher. For example, they got a $13,000, that 4th scholarship is going out. All right, because your chapter benefited by an additional like $10,000, $12,000 because that kid got the highest award in the whole deal. I mean, that's an extreme example, but that's how that works. There's a lot of the ins and outs to this. Like I said, it's been around since 1963, and I've been sitting on the board with these guys for over 20 years, and there's about every permutation and combination you can think out there. You know, we've got scholarships for engineering students, journalism, only survivors of killed in action, Medal of Honor scholarships. I mean, each donor has prescribed a very arcane solution set to getting their successful packet winners. But it's a nightmare trying to deconflict all this stuff.
It's Mike Smith from Wright Brothers Chapter. Most of my questions are money related, but the one scholarship money related question, 3 years ago we didn't have any, we weren't giving out scholarships. We had the good fortune of sitting down with General Petrosky in Columbus, Ohio. He brought us up to speed on how to get money for your chapter. So this is the 3rd year we're providing scholarships. I know some of the other chapters seem to be very successful with tying into these industry partners. We have not. We've had one $500 donation these 3 years, which obviously yielded, based on our chapter size, $1,000 scholarship. What's the strategy, do's and don'ts for us? I know in the past it was, you know, national interface with industry, chapters don't.
That's exactly right. By our Quad A bylaws, keep in mind you guys don't belong to the Scholarship Foundation, you belong to Quad A. The Quad A bylaws prohibit you from going directly to corporations. You can imagine 72 chapters doing this to the CEOs of, you know, whatever, Boeing, Sikorsky, et cetera, Lockheed Martin now. It gets to be off the charts. And, you know, I get phone calls and everything else. So that stopped pretty much from the beginning of Quad A. Now, that's not to say that, you know, marketing dollars that happen to be outside the gate at Redstone or something like that, that you sponsor golf holes and stuff, that doesn't get to our level of visibility. And frankly, you know, you take advantage of that opportunity like every AUSA and NDIA and others do. But, you know, you cannot compete, and you're prohibited from competing at the national level of, you know, asking Sikorsky for a $50,000 grant at your local chapter because, you know, by rights, then they get with 72 people, 72 chapters, all requesting similar things, and they're going to pull the plug on Quad A. You're just going to like, I'm not dealing with this stuff. And I've had calls from industry CEOs of these major contractors going, hey, one of your boys is out of line, what's going on here? And the big corporations also have very strict colors of money. Big money comes out of philanthropic wings that they have that are funded separately. They're not marketing dollars. The guys outside the gates, and there are some people in this room that work for corporations, can tell you they've got money for, you know, golf holes and, you know, little sponsorships like that. But it's not from their philanthropic foundation that is set up for the major corporation. That's a whole different deal. Grant proposals have to be written in the summertime frame, and that's something you cannot do. So if you happen to get a few $100s from... Yeah, usually, see, the marketing dollars, first of all, companies have much different rules in terms of what they're taking off their taxes. They're not going to take that off anyway. That's a marketing dollar, so they're not looking for a tax deduction. They're not looking for an individual person. So it's a totally different deal, and it's, you know, it's not something that we need to worry about. I think the IRS level right now is $600 because we just ran into it here for the raffle we're holding for scholarship on the iPads we're doing, and that's another whole. You actually literally have to give a 1099 if they're winning something, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Yep. Okay, could we let's let Michael. We probably covered everything on your slides, there, Michael, by now. But
yeah, I appreciate a lot of good questions. That concludes my brief. No, just kidding. I do have a few other slides that I do want to walk through you with it, but a lot of good questions have been asked, and a lot of good information I had up here in addition to here. You've seen this slide before. Jan provided this slide in terms of the chapters that have participated, the members, the amount has been given out, a number of scholarships. This number I talked about earlier, so that's not any new information there. The next slide, which we've already been discussing in great detail, perpetual versus annual matching slides. And then let me go back one. Okay, on the perpetual slide, I think this discussion has been pretty well drilled down on the minimum in an endowed fund, meaning an everlasting fund, $30,000 threshold, and that pays back a rate of 3.5 spend rate. But the chapters have to has to raise to that amount in order to do that, to have that endowed fund. To initiate the perpetual matching fund, you have to fill out the paperwork, contact Sue, contact National. You don't have to go through it by yourself. Someone will help you walk through that process. The annual matching fund, which is probably the one that you're more interested in, is that when funds are donated, they're matched and distributed that year normally. And the same process applies there. And I think all of you sound as if you're very familiar with that. And Bill kind of went into the details. And most of you, if you do have additional questions, we will field those questions. The timeline that was mentioned in terms of when, where, and who, you have to pre-qualify in the January time frame. That's the key thing. You get the information, you start pre-qualifying. You have a May 1 deadline for applicants to complete. And then the June, I think Bill did in fact mention this June deadline for applications, referrals, and all those type things. And then in Jane, go ahead, you have a question?
Reference Bob Dorr Aviation Center chapter. Reference timelines. Any thoughts on shifting that? Can there be? And the reason why I ask this is each year the high schools, as you know, announce seniors and what scholarships they got. It would be ideal to throw Quad A up there in front of the high schools, advertisement, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be nice to announce the kids before they head off to college that made the scholarships.
Yeah, we could look at that again. I know that was one of Tom Conitzer and his wife Judy's initiatives back 5 or 10 years ago. We may have a little more flexibility now because we've gone all digital in the voting process. But I can tell you when it was totally mechanical up until 2 years ago, where we actually have to get the folks in the room at the National Guard headquarters in Washington with boxes and boxes of paper and spend 8 hours. By the time we got everything done, it just wasn't feasible, particularly when we overlaid the Quad A convention, because as you might imagine, your staff of 19 is pretty much flat out right now. We just have zero bandwidth. This is a huge exercise, not only of making sure the files are complete. Keep in mind, we've gotten as high as almost 1,000 applicants in the prior few years. They didn't all complete their folders, but Sue has to chase these people down and say, hey, you're missing a reference. We didn't get one transcript, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very, very labor intensive, and it depends what we can physically handle. I think he was first.
While he's getting the mic over, a couple of things that we've changed. In the past, we looked at the SAT scores and all those type things, and we've found out that a lot of the universities are not drilling down and using that as an evaluation data point. So we still receive the information, but we kind of sanitize or level the playing field in terms of what is evaluated across the board. Go ahead, sir.
So to talk with Colonel Dewar, the problem is that it's hard for us as chapters to then have an event where we can honor these people. So most of the people that we give scholarships are at school by the time we get these scholarships back, and we can't recognize them. So pushing it back with the normal scholarship was February, so that by May, they're getting recognized in front of their peers, and then also we can hold an event prior to them going to college would really benefit, I think, the overall scholarship fund for our chapter.
Yeah, just thinking completely blue sky here, I don't think through what the ramifications would be. We could even push this back to where it's juniors instead of seniors. So you're catching them at the beginning of their senior year. I mean, I suppose they could implode, but anyway, we can certainly look at the.
Yeah, I think what we should do, we should look at that and kind of decide how to do it. One thing that we are doing, in addition to giving out scholarships, we have Mark Griffin that we are trying to re-engage the alumni committee. And the alumni committee, we engage those students that have received scholarships, those that have graduated or in the private sector and making money and can give back and to ensure that we have even more funds available, but keeping the community engaged from the front end all the way to the back end throughout the whole entire life cycle. That was another question.
Yeah, mine was just a reiteration. I'm Floyd Rogers from the Aviation Center chapter and been working the scholarship piece for several years. And it does, I'm involved in other organizations, and those other organizations are able to participate in the awards programs at the high schools in the May timeline. But again, Quad A, we get no local market visibility because, again, by the time they're announced, the kids are off to college, and it does, in fact, affect our ability to communicate what Quad A is doing within the community.
And it ties to the overall brand of Quad A, right? The mission statement is supporting the aviation soldier and family. So we're missing a huge opportunity on the local level to make sure that people see the support. And it came up yesterday in the meeting. The Quad A logo got modified a couple, 3 years ago to include the words networking, recognition, voice, and support, right? Networking, recognition, voice, and support. What's the number one thing Quad A does in terms of support? Scholarship Foundation, right? So if we're missing an opportunity to get, whatever it was, 252 kids up in front of their local communities with the Quad A brand with them, that's something we really got to look at to see that we can accommodate that a little bit better.
Is it the show that is the conflict?
Traditionally, it has been, along with the intense amount of paperwork, copying. You get 900 files have to be blacked out by hand, all the names, the ranks, even the sex is removed, so that when it goes to the voting board, there's zero bias. They don't know if this is a colonel's kid or a sergeant or anything else, or sex, or where they're going. So it's very. I mean, there's hundreds of hours that go into just the sanitizing piece of it, and when they're ramping up.
We certainly have enough spreadsheet gurus out in our membership base that you could probably put a Tiger team together, give that spreadsheet to somebody, and they could run a macro or something on that would do that instead of hundreds of man hours. It might be a button push. Yeah,
exactly. That's a volunteer right there. Now we're looking at that, but let's not. We got the issue. We got it. We'll look at a solution. I can tell you it's not going to happen this year, because we're already in April, but we can look at that stuff going forward.
I have a couple more slides, and I'm about to get the hook from Jan. As you can see, he's coming toward the stage. But I'll step quickly through these slides. But a lot of good information that you're talking about are these dates right here, in terms of the chapter officers being notified and also the students being notified and recognized within the community. And we will, in fact, look at that and see if we can come up with a better working solution. Here, the websites, the contact, you have Sue's contact information. And there are a lot of these questions that we've talked about today are, in fact, out there in the frequently asked questions on the website. But we are available, I'm available, Bill's available, Sue, and the whole staff's available to entertain and field questions as you see them, as you have them. And lastly, the form is you should have in your book a copy of the form that you could take a look at, and if it's not all self-explanatory, but there are a couple key things on there. A couple people asked about the slides. In my backup slides, there were asked about the options. If you do not award a scholarship during that year, is the money still available? In the backup slides, there's option 1 and option 2. Once you fill out the slides, that will allow you to address that, whether you want the money to be given out annually or not, depending on somebody that's available in your chapter or not. I appreciate your time, your attention, and that concludes my presentation.